Bitter rivalries, legal battles, family feuds, a few troubles that punctuated the life of one of the most brilliant motorcycle craftsmen in television history, Paul Teutul Jr. For many years, viewers were left stunned as Paul Jr. and Sr. engaged themselves in one of the most thrilling family dramas to ever unfold on a television screen. But what dark secrets lay behind the curtains? Join us to unveil never-before-seen revelations, whispered tales, and rare confessions. This is the untold story of Paul Teutul Jr. of American Orange County Chopper. Genesis. On October 2, 1972, American chopper star Paul Teutul Sr. and his wife Paula Teutul welcomed their first child, who was appropriately named after the legend himself. At this point, no one could have predicted that this charming little boy would eventually become one of the most iconic figures in motorcycle culture. As a child, Paul Jr. became fascinated with his father's obsession, motorcycles, an interest that would eventually define the course of his life and career. Along with his three siblings, Michael, Kristen, and Daniel, Paul Sr. watched his father's steel business Orange County Ironworks flourish, and from this very young age, he immersed himself in the intricacies of the craft. This was before the family was thrown into the whirlwind of Hollywood fame and fortune. By the time he turned 12, Paul started spending his summers working in the family business, honing his skills, and earning himself a reputation as a fast learner. But before the world knew him as the rubber-burning, metal-bending master craftsman that he is today, Paul was just a simple boy with the dream of becoming just like his father. Wherever his father's interest turned, he would also follow. His father was his hero, although their lives would eventually be marked by tons of drama, both off-screen and on-screen. Back in high school, Paul furthered his interest in ironworks when he got involved with a Board of Cooperative Education Services program, which allowed him to improve his metalworking skills. With this unique skill set, Paul Jr. found himself becoming increasingly useful around the shop, although it eventually altered his childhood experience. While other kids spent their summer breaks traveling the world with their families or engaging in other pastimes, Paul Jr. would devote the vast majority of his time hanging out with adults in his dad's shop, and as a result, the boy had to grow up very fast. After graduating from high school, Paul Jr. thrust himself into the world of steel fabrication, and instead of going on to pursue degrees and certifications, he instead became a full-time employee of Orange County Ironworks. As the years rolled by, his role in the shop would become increasingly apparent as he climbed the ladder until he became the head of the railing shop. But the Teutul family were about to experience a dramatic shift, one that very few people saw coming. It was at this point that his father's interest began to tend towards building motorcycles, a hobby that eventually turned into a massively successful business. However, that reality was a bit out of reach at this point. As Paul Jr. watched his father's new exploration grow into much more than a hobby, he also began to take an interest in the art of motorcycle customization. Then in 1999, a pivotal event that would forever be etched in the hearts of father and son took place. Seeing his son's astute ability in metalworking and fabrication, Paul Teutul Sr. introduced Jr. into this new motorcycle venture. This was the birth of Orange County Choppers. From humble beginnings to Hollywood glory, every empire begins with a vision, and in 1999, Paul Teutul Sr. took the first step in the pursuit of his dream to become a world-class custom motorcycle builder. Branching out from a highly successful iron fabrication business, Paul Sr. established Orange County Chopper at 10 Factory Street, Montgomery, New York, before eventually moving to 27 Stone Castle Road in Rock Tavern, New York. 3 years after the business started, Orange County Chopper had gained a reputation as one of the biggest custom bike builders in America, and it didn't take long before the company would catch the attention of the Discovery Channel, and in December 2002, the world was introduced to the enigma that is Paul Teutul Sr. and his crew of ragtag motorcycle enthusiasts, engineers, and brilliant craftsmen. It was love at first sight for many Americans, who couldn't get enough of the on-screen drama, the larger-than-life persona of the characters, and of course, the brilliant work that went into building some of the most remarkable motorcycles you've ever seen. For many young viewers, This show became the bedrock of a newfound love for burning rubber and riding into sunset like a rebel without a cause. The show American Chopper was born, the beginning of a journey that would define the lives of many of the people involved, both on-screen and behind the scenes. Unlike many reality television shows, this one was different. The crew, which consisted of Paul Teutul Sr., his son Paul Teutul Junior, Jason Pohl, Vincent DiMartino, Cody Connolly, Michael Teutul, and a host of others, weren't just on-screen actors working with a script. These were people whose love for creating two-wheeled masterpieces transcended the fame and fortune it brought. The show instantly became a fan favorite, and within quite a short period, the bike shop had moved from a relatively modest location to a $12 million, 61,000-foot custom facility in Newburgh. The company owned the property until 2011, when serious financial trouble forced Paul Sr. to relinquish ownership to his chief lender GE Commercial Finance Business Corporation in order to avoid foreclosure. However, it continued to lease two-thirds of the property in order to avoid losing a total grip. For Paul Teutul Jr., though, Orange County Chopper was more than a shot to fame. It was home. His role as the chief designer and fabricator propelled the business to astronomical heights. With his remarkable brilliance and imagination, he brought to life many amazing designs that astounded both the audience and even his fellow craftsmen at the Orange County Chopper Shop. But beyond building eye-catching bikes, Paul Teutul Jr. also captivated the audience with his on-screen persona. As a reality star, his daunting presence and ability to create a lasting impression on the audience bought him celebrity status. Even after exiting the show, he was able to build up on this fame, branching out on his own to create a magnificent empire which still stands till today. The most memorable event on the show, however, which coincidentally also led to the cancellation of the whole series, was the crazy fight between Paul Teutul Jr. and his father. You might recognize this duel from the iconic meme or the thousands of YouTube videos that have been made discussing the pros and cons, but for these two, it was more than clout. Join us as we recount the horrid details of that fateful day when the dreams of Orange County Chopper were flushed down the drain. Senior versus Junior. Everybody knows the worst person to do business with is your own family. No one understands this better than Paul Teutul Jr. and his father Senior, whose joint business venture eventually became the undoing of their personal relationship. As we dive deep into the tales of American Chopper, the heartbreaking tragedy of Paul Teutul Jr. from American Orange County Chopper, this pivotal moment remains memorable. Long before the explosive brawl that killed the show, the father and son duo had engaged in several heated arguments, many of which integrated into very low levels, putting both their professional and personal lives at risk. Long before Kim Kardashian lost her earring in the ocean, before the Real Housewives began setting the internet on fire, there was Paul Teutul Jr. and Sr., with their constant bickering and constant drama. Although fans had gotten used to seeing the two engage each other on screen, and sometimes even look forward to it, the egregious display which unfolded during the iconic Season 5 episode seemed to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. On this fateful day, Paul Teutul Jr. came late to work as usual, sparking rage and fury in his dad, who believed that he was responsible for holding his son to the same standard he expected from other employees. As Paul Jr. strode majestically into work at 7:45, there was fire in his dad's eyes as he tried desperately to keep his cool. As soon as Paul Jr. entered the shop, he was summoned into the office. Without mincing words, Paul Sr. expressed his displeasure at his son's constant tardiness. Before you could say Jack Robinson, the conversation had escalated into a full-blown argument. Sr. laid into Jr. with all guns blazing, pointing out that he shouldn't have to babysit his full-grown son. This was where things took a whole different turn. Instead of seeing things from his father's perspective, Jr. also lost his self-control. The two began screaming in each other's faces, hurling the most abusive words possible without a care for each other's feelings. It was obvious at this point that both parties had lost the mutual respect they once shared. But everything was about to go sideways very quickly. As Paul Sr. read out the contract, Highlighting every single time his son violated the stipulated terms, Junior decided he had had enough, picked up a chair, and hurled it across the room. The whole scenario eventually ended with Paul Jr. getting fired both from the garage and the show. It was this iconic moment that inspired the creation of the argument meme, forever immortalizing the infamous feud in internet glory. For the next 10 years, the two men found themselves on opposing ends, with lawsuits flying to and fro, and the father and son bond shattered to pieces. Following the termination of Paul Jr.'s contract, Paul Sr. descended even further by filing a lawsuit against his own son, opening up another chapter in this much-publicized father and son feud. Legal drama. Even with Paul Teutul Jr. out of the show, Paul Sr. still found a way to fight with his son, making him further estranged himself from his family. You see, getting Jr. out of the business wasn't a simple affair, owing to the fact that he held a 20% stake, one which he wasn't willing to let go of so easily. While this wasn't a problem in the past, with Paul Jr. fired, there was no way Sr. would allow him to continue to maintain his grip on the business. So, onto the courtroom, they marched, father and son bitterly pitted against each other in the fight of the century. As the whole world watched on, the legal drama unfolded with each side presenting their arguments. The Supreme Court of New York became the theater where each party presented their legal prowess. Paul Sr., who filed the dispute, claimed that his company, Orange County Choppers Holding Inc., had the right to purchase his son's stocks, totally severing all linkage. He even sent a letter to Paul Jr., stating that he was willing to exercise a stock option that would allow him to purchase Paul Jr.'s position company for $500,000, while the lawsuit called for an additional sum of $1 million in damages. It was a backdoor deal that seemed to offer Paul Jr. the opportunity to minimize his losses. At first, the victory tended in Paul Sr.'s favor, and the court ordered the son to sell his 20% interest in the company. But this young man wasn't one to back down from a challenge. Fighting furiously against the odds, he went ahead to appeal the case, claiming that the option given was unenforceable. Although Paul Sr.'s lawyers argued hard to defend the decision of the lower court, all 4 judges who presided over the appeal case handed down a unanimous decision in favor of the son, much to the shock and amazement of everyone who followed the case. It was a twist everyone expected, but no one saw coming. Although this victory was ruled in the son's favor, the dynamics of his relationship with his father took a terrible hit, and for an entire decade, the two never spoke to each other. But as it is with all things, life must go on. And even though Paul Jr.'s chapter on American Chopper was over, it was time to venture into new things and open unexplored frontiers. The next chapter, Paul Jr. designs. When one door closes, another opens, as the saying goes. This was the case for Paul Teutul Jr. After severing ties with his father, Paul found himself in a fix. Although he was no longer in the employ of his father's Orange County Customs, his contract had included a non-compete clause, which prevented him from starting any custom shop of his own for a whole year after exiting the company. But after the year had passed, Paul Jr. began planning the next course of his life, and in April 2010, rumors started swirling around that he was planning to start his own motorcycle business to go head-to-head against his father's business. According to the report, which was peddled by the celebrity gossip outlet TMZ, Paul Jr. planned to bring on some former OCC employees, who were also disgruntled like himself. This included Michael Teutul, Vinny DiMartino, Joe Pugliafico, and Robert Collard, who were major backbones of Orange County Customs. A part of the rumors were confirmed when Paul Jr. announced his new venture, Paul Jr. Designs, bringing on just one of his dad's former employees, Cody Connolly. But with this new company came new drama, one that would invite an unwanted guest back into the life of Paul Teutul Jr., American Chopper, Sr. versus Jr. After a disgraceful exit from the public scene in 2008, Paul Teutul Jr. returned for a spin-off of American Chopper Sr. versus Jr. The show premiered on August 12, 2010 on the TLC network, and it focused on the rivalry between Orange County Choppers, owned by Paul Teutul Sr., and his son's newly opened company, Paul Junior Designs. The show ran for 4 seasons, between 2010 and 2012. Over the course of 2 years, the two teams were pitted against each other in a game of wits and skills, some of which even translated beyond professional duels to personal feuds. Unfortunately, Senior versus Junior didn't really do well, and by 2012, the show was canceled. As soon as the spin-off was over, the gap between father and son began to widen further, and the men rarely spoke. But Paul Teutul Jr. was about to pull another card, one that ultimately unveiled the true reality of the events that transpired between Senior and Junior beyond what was revealed on screen. The All Revealing Memoir. On November 7, 2017, Paul Teutul Jr. revealed his first book titled The Build: Designing My Life of Choppers, Family, and Faith. For many people who had followed the story of the father and son, this was a pivotal moment, as we were finally about to get the scoop from the very source himself. Although the father and son exhibited many of their toxic traits on camera, what went on behind the scenes seems to be even more disturbing. In an interview after the release of this book, Paul Jr. revealed that the release was actually scheduled for the fall of 2016. However, things didn't really work out. But according to him, the timing couldn't be more perfect. This was because at the time the book was released, the feud between the two parties had gathered considerable attention. Paul's shop was done, and the whole world was poised to listen to his side of the story. In the book, Paul Jr. revealed the harsh realities of being thrust into the limelight. Although he quickly emphasized that apart from straining his relationship with his dad, the experience was quite positive, except for the fact that he had to do tons of work. For those who doubted if the fights were real, Paul Jr. cleared the confusion from the very first page of his book. It reads, "For 10 seasons and 233 one-hour episodes, my father and I were often a relational train wreck that proved equally as difficult to turn away from as to watch." And yes, it was real. In these first few pages, Paul Jr. takes the reader on an in-depth journey into his childhood and the rigors of growing up with a man like his father, who he described as a monster. Apparently, Paul Sr. struggled with an alcohol addiction, an issue that created huge strains in his relationship with his family. However, the issue seems to be quite generational, as Paul Jr. also revealed that his father had grown up with an alcoholic mother, and parents who spent more time arguing than they spent showing affection. With this understanding of Paul Sr.'s childhood, Jr. eventually came to terms with his father's explosive personality, and he even felt compassion toward him. According to Paul Jr., this all-revealing chapter was quite emotional for him to write, as it required that he dig up a past he had tried so hard to forget. Like a terrible nightmare, this chapter of his life creeps up from time to time, sending him light years back into emotional turmoil, which he believed he had successfully moved on from. Here's a little excerpt to give you an understanding of how deeply rooted the story is. "It has been difficult to detail in this book my bad experiences with my dad, because he is my dad, and I love him, and I have long desired to have a normal relationship with him. But there's a silver lining to this storm sky. Seeing how his addiction was gradually tearing his family apart, Paul Sr. went into rehab, and after extensive therapy, he was able to maintain a stable relationship with his son, although that depends on your definition of stable. When the two would eventually connect again, it was over their shared love of motorcycles. While working on the shovelhead they had customized in the basement of their house, father and son were able to have those difficult conversations, apologize, and move forward in their healing process. However, this was way before their infamous on-screen feud, so we can't really tell how deeply their relationship was mended. Moving on from his father, Paul Jr. also talks about his other siblings, Mikey, Danny, and Kristen, as well as his mother Paulina, who had become a driving force in his life and passion. The book also includes a revelation about Paul Jr.'s Christian faith and how deeply it has informed his decisions and steps in life. He credits God for his bike-building talent, confirming that his faith has been the foundation for everything he has built over the years. Taking the audience on the ride of a lifetime, Paul Jr. delved into the drama that punctuated his role as a part of Orange County Choppers. He claimed that he had initially believed that he would take over the company one day, but at a point he realized that dream would never become reality. This was quite an emotional part of the story, and you could feel the pain in his pen as he documented this vital part of his history. In this revelation, Paul Jr. admitted that it was when he got far away from the business that he realized how unhealthy the relationship was. Working with a man like Paul Sr. was emotionally draining, and when he got fired, it was more of a good riddance than a negative experience. The title of the book itself, The Build, was much more than wordplay. It was simple yet strong, concise yet deep. Paul Jr. also credited his wife for aiding his memory during the writing process. Rachel Teutul played his role well, not just as a backbone for her husband, but also as a fact-checker, who ensured that every story was accurate to the tiniest detail. For Paul, this book had been a long time coming, and his goal was to transport the public into his world in order to ensure a broader understanding of his life story. As we delve into the never-before-seen stories, we are transported into a world where fiction becomes stranger than reality, and family feuds are laid bare in the open. The revelations contained in this book will astound you, and some will shock you, but in all, it will help you gain a broader understanding of the life of the enigmatic Paul Teutul Jr. Before we go on with more astounding revelations, here's our subscribers' pick for today. As we explore the gripping tales of American Chopper, the heartbreaking tragedy of Paul Teutul Jr. from American Orange County Chopper, we are captivated by his remarkable story. Although he was the son of a highly successful man, Paul Jr.'s story wasn't a bed of roses. This picture captures him in his most vulnerable moment, as he recounts some of the traumatic experiences that not only shaped his life, but also his relationship with his father. From the childhood drama to the on-screen feuds and legal battles, their relationship has been a roller coaster, playing out in the full view of the world. In this captivating story, the world has been divided along borderlines, as many voice their support for the father, while others stand with the son. In matters like these, taking a side can be a challenge, as each party offers convincing arguments that would tend the support in their favor. Who do you believe is responsible for the sedition that plagued the relationship? The father or the son? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's get back to the video. American Chopper Special Episode. Family feuds, legal drama, and bitter rivalries. A few events that punctuated the relationship between Paul Teutul Sr. and his son. But it all came to a head in August 2020, when the two legendary craftsmen decided to put their beef aside and return for one final episode. Fans were thrilled when news of the 2-hour American Chopper special episode was announced, as it marked the fulfillment of a dream many believed would never become reality. For a whole decade, the father-son duo had taken their fans on a wild ride, and after years of trying to build their fractured relationships, they decided to go back to where it all started: the garage. This was built on the hopes that working on a custom bike together would inspire the love they once shared and restore their broken relationship. This highly emotional episode begins with Paul Teutul Jr. and Sr. discovering that the original Orange County Choppers building was going to be torn down. This revelation tugged at our heartstrings, making even the strongest men shed a little tear. Father and son then decided to pay a little visit to the old building, picking up a few things left behind while reminiscing on the old days. Overcome by the history of the building, Paul Jr. jumps on the opportunity to ask his dad to build a bike together. After taking some time to think about it, Paul Sr. agrees, and the two set out to work on a custom chopper for ABC Supply Company, one of the largest distributors of exterior and interior building products. However, complications arose between the father and son duo as they worked on their last project together. In a bid to create a one-of-a-kind chopper, creative processes clashed as Paul Jr. and Sr. tried to incorporate their unique styles into the build. When Paul Jr. pushes for more creative input, the entire build is thrown into jeopardy, bringing back the memories of the original show like it was just yesterday. Fortunately, both parties were able to work through their differences this time, and even with a deadline of just 8 weeks, the combined team was able to build a masterpiece. This marked a befitting end to one of the most iconic shows on television, and a perfect punctuation to the father-son duo we have all come to know and love. Where is Paul Teutul Junior today? Today, Paul Junior Designs continues to churn out an unending stream of custom bikes as well as beautifully crafted apparel. Some notable choppers released from the stables of PJD include the Pharaoh bike, the Cadillac bike, the Safed bike, the March of Dimes bike, and the New York Yankees bike, to mention a few. The brilliant craftsman has also lent his creativity in the production of some bikes for films and video games, in addition to working on a number of other side projects. This includes the designing of a municipal dog park, a playground set, and 10th anniversary Coleman barbecue grill. The company currently works hand in hand with Paul Sr.'s company and has hired many of its former employees. Professional life aside, Paul Jr.'s personal relationship has been pretty stable. In 2010, he got married to the love of his life, Rachel Beaster, and together they appeared in the hit TLC series Say Yes to the Dress. Their beautiful marriage was blessed with a son named Hudson in 2015, and in 2020, the couple purchased their dream home on Long Beach Island. With a successful business to his name, Paul Jr. has amassed a net worth of about $2 million, and his destiny seems to be headed for the stars. Thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.